program, The Law of the People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television. This is a program that bridges the gap between the government. This program exists to explain better what the administration of the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has for the people. So stay tuned as we write. All right, a quick one. So I'll just go through the reports that we're having for today. We have so many reports to share today. We'll quickly get on to the first report that we are having for today. Well, the former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, has said the G5, consisting of former Governor Nyesom Wike, Samuel Autumn Ifeanyi, appointments and protection from persecution, in his own opinion, from the federal government. Atiku, in a statement by his Special Assistant on Public Communication, Frank Schweibu, said their decision not to support his comments by former Ekiti State Governor Ayo Fayose on why he did not support the PDP presidential candidate in the last election, said the latter ought to have been bold to campaign for President Bola Tinubu and the All Progressive Congress in the last election. And the G5, alongside the allies include Fayose, had refused to be part of the PDP presidential campaign due to difference between them and the opposition party in the aftermath of the presidential primary. Atiku noted that the former Ekiti governor, who admitted in a televised interview that he worked against his party in the last presidential poll, was only running from pillar to post in order to get Tinubu to discontinue Fayose, while addressing his supporters in Ado-Ekiti, publicly stated that he would be supporting Waziri Atiku Abubakar despite Wike's protest. According to him, he says a single Google search will confirm this. He says, then after Tinubu's dubious victory, Fayose quickly changed gears, stating that he was the one who delivered Ekiti State to the APC. This is his stock in trade. He is a lily-livered rabble-rouser who loves to be in the spotlight and pretends to be more serial appointment because of the people like Kayode Fayemi, Dele Alake, and of course Dayo Adeyeye, who are jostling for the Ekiti slot as well. And Fayose is now running from pillar to post, trying to get an appointment for his son, while also trying to get the government to withdraw his cushion. And that decision not to support Atiku had nothing to do with patriotism, and Nigerians should not be deceived. He says Autumn was one of the worst governors in the history of Nigeria. His case file at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is bulky, and he was recently invited but released because of Wike's intervention. He says Ikpeazu, the former governor of Abia State, also performed woefully in office. His successor has been complaining almost on a daily basis, but the EFCC will not prosecute him because of the G5 connection. He says this is what they have turned the country into. No wonder they believe Nigeria needs an average mad person. Democratic Party Atiku Abubakar. Don't forget that Wike, APC Rivers, had been clamoring for ministerial appointments from the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. Well, a quick one, let's move away from that and get to other political trends that is happening today. President Bola Tinubu has appointed 20 new aides, and well, according to reports, the new appointments include those of Senior Special Assistants, that's SSA, 3 weeks after he made the last set of major appointments. Well, Tinubu had issued some of the new aides appointment letters, according to a report, and some of the new appointees are Tunde Rahman, the SSA on Media, Abdul Aziz, SSA Print Media, Ibrahim Masari, SSA Political, Adekunle Tinubu, Personal Physician, Damal Ortega Oga, Senior Special Assistant Digital and New Media, Demola Oshodi, Senior Special Assistant Protocol, Tope Ajayi, Senior Special Assistant Media and Public Affairs, of course Yetunde Sikoni, Senior Special Assistant, of course Moturayo Junadu, Senior Special Assistant, Shegun Dada, Social Assistant, Social Media, Paul Adekaya, Special Assistant Logistics, Friday Sotun, Special Assistant Housekeeping, Shitabe Akande, Special Assistant Catering, Nosa Semota, Special Assistant Visual Communications, and of course Personal Assistant General Duties. Sunday Moses, Personal Assistant Videography. Taiwo Okanlawon, Special Assistant State Photographer. And also the Senate President Godswill Akpabio today during plenary session disclosed the chairs of some standing committees such as appropriations, public account, ethics and public petitions. Ahmed Wadada will be the public accounts committee officer. In the same session, Akpabio read a letter from President Bola Tinubu, who has requested the Senate's confirmation of recently appointed service chiefs. What the Senate President Godswill Akpabio said, these service chiefs will be screened by the entire Senate at a yet-to-be-announced date. Just last week, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had asked the House of Reps for similar confirmation, with Speaker Abbas Tajudeen reading the President's request on Thursday's plenary session. And President Tinubu appointed new service chiefs, recall that, to replace the previous ones with immediate effect on June 19th. And the State security chiefs included retired Major General Babagana Monguno, that's the National Security Advisor; Lucky Irabo, Chief of Defense Staff; Farouk Yahaya, Chief of Army Staff; Awal Gambo, Chief of Naval Staff; and Ishaka Amal, Chief of Air Staff. While the new appointees included Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor; Major General Christopher Musa, Chief of Defense Staff; Major General Tari Blagwaja, Chief of Army Staff; Rear Admiral Emmanuel Ogalant. Godswill Akpabio has announced the composition and leadership of the following committees. The Special Committee on Selection, that's Senator Godswill Akpabio, the chairman; Senator Jibrin Barao, which is vice chairman; Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele, member; Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume, member; Senator David Umahi, member; Senator Yolola Ashiru, member; John Wokocha, member; Rafai Hanga, member. Then Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions included Senator Okechukwu Ezia, chairman; Ibrahim Mustafa Khalid, vice chairman; Senator. The Senate Committee on Public Accounts include Senator Aliyu Ahmed Wadada, chairman; Senator Peter Onyeka Mwaboni, vice chairman. Then Senate Committee on National Security and Intelligence, Senator Shehu Buba Omara, chairman; Senator Asukwa Ekpenyong, vice chairman. Then Senate Committee on Legislative Compliance are Senator Musa Garba Maidoki, chairman; Senator Edi Onoya Defendant, vice chairman. While the Senate Committee on Rules and Business had Senator Titus Zam, chairman; Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele, vice chairman. Also, Senate Committee on Senate Services, Senator Sunday Karimi, chairman; Senator Williams Etengjona, vice chairman. Then Senate Committee on Media and Public Salisu as vice chairman. Then for Senate Committee on Appropriations, Senator Solomon Olamilekan Adeola, chairman; Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume, vice chairman. So those are the newly appointed Senate committees members that are going to take a look at each sectors of the economy. Of course, with these key people, you can ensure that this administration is going forward in terms of policies and, of course, implementation. Remember that what the Senate is there to do is to recognize those places that need to be touched and, of course, make laws that the government should, the executive arm of the government should. This administration is going to drive Nigeria to a better place. All right, so the third report we'll be looking at today is quite strong. Of course, the spate of insecurity in Nigeria is something that put it on the forefront on our heads to make sure it works out. Then let's do it together. So we'll take a look at the third report we're having for today, and most importantly, we'll be looking at what is happening in the southeastern region of Nigeria. Of course, there have been killings, even in Jos Plateau, a whole lot of places. When we come back from the short break, we'll take a look at that. So just stay tuned. We'll be right back.
day, we'll bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting us. Education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Welcome back. It's still the program, The Law of the People and Governance. Just in case you're joining us, then, of course, we are about to talk about the state of insecurity here in the region of Nigeria. I think that is where it is actually burning, because series of issues have been happening. It just looks like we've lost control. 1 minute, it looks like the government is in control, and the next minute, it looks like it's burning and it's out of control. So the southeastern region of Nigeria has witnessed several bouts of unrest and conflict in recent years, with calls for the restoration of Biafra gaining traction among some segment of the population. And additionally, the rendition and illegal detention of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in the DSS dungeon without due process have contributed to the volatile situation. A concerning narrative has emerged suggesting that the Nigerian government is actively involved in inciting. We'll explore these allegations and shed light on the situation. So various reports have indicated the possible involvement of state actors in instigating violence in the southeast region. It is alleged that the government may be using its security forces to carry out attacks on market women during a sit-at-home protest, which have been predominantly organized by the secessionist group led by the capable, would I say, I don't know a particular name to give to him right now, but I think he's becoming so popular to a point that we've lost control of him. Talking about Simon Ekpa, this alleged strategy aims to intimidate and quell the growing demand for Biafra's freedom. While the state actors, including the law enforcement agencies and government-sponsored vigilante groups like Ebubeagu, are accused of deploying excessive force and engaging in arbitrary arrest, extrajudicial killings, and the harassment of innocent civilians as well. So the insecurity in the eastern region of Nigeria cannot be attributed to the actions of one individual. Insecurity is historical grievances, political instability, even lack of effective governance and security measures. So a situation where residents cannot go out about their go about their lawful businesses for fear of being killed or maimed by unknown gunmen amid a sit-at-home order questions the competence of the government, both at the federal and at the state level. In Anambra State, for instance, some areas, especially in the southern and some parts of the central senatorial zones, are no-go areas as kidnappers and criminals have taken over. Even in to the occasion to deal with these monsters before it becomes too late, and also continued silence of the critical stakeholders in the face of the challenges is no longer golden. The Nnamdi Kanu-led indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, which earlier ordered the every Monday sit-at-home as part of the nation by the people. So the Southeast governors have also been accused of sponsoring insecurity for their selfish political ambitions as one of the ways of looting the treasury in guise of fighting insecurity. There is security in the region. Why the Southeast governors are yet to take decisive action against insecurity that is destroying the region in a matter of for concern. The Ebubeagu has reportedly been converted into a hit group against members of opposition parties by the governors. Apart from the allegations of abuse, Obi Umahi retired to resign. So the neglect of Ebubeagu by the governors paved way for and boosted the masses' confidence in the Eastern Security Network formed by IPOP nature. They say Abo's vacuum. So the IPOB capitalized on lack of political will by the governors to jointly tackle insecurity in the zone. So the ESN, though a non-state actor, received accolades from the residents as they saw it as the only alternative. So unlike the Amotakun that is striving in up to their primary responsibility, which is the protection of lives and property, insecurity has caused a lot of damage to the economy of the Southeast. The importance of the region to the nation's economy cannot be overemphasized. Cities like Onitsha, Aba, Newi have established themselves over the years as a manufacturing and commercial business in Onitsha and Aba. So the urgent intervention by the security forces, the federal and state government is also required to restore sanity in the region. The government should also consider dialogue as panacea to end the killings and destruction of lives and property in the Southeast before we have another Boko Haram situation in that economically strategic region. Meanwhile, recent report says the Southeast elders have arrived at the decision to meet the president at an emergency meeting held yesterday at the Imo State Governor's Lodge in Asokoro, Abuja. Governor Hope Uzodinma, who spoke to newsmen after the lengthy meeting, lamented that insecurity as the problem of the Southeast for now, and it is at the front burner and must be addressed. It says the federal government in the past supported the the southeastern part of Nigeria, but they think it can do more. So among other resolutions, they resolved to make a representation to the police, or to the president rather, for his intervention to be able to bring insecurity in the region to an end. It says for any moment now, they'll be putting together an arrangement to visit the president, and only the federal government can deploy as appropriate. On his part, President General of Ohaneze Ndibo, Emmanuel, said the 5 Southeast governors and lawmakers from the region are determined to end the security challenge. It is not something that just started now. It's something that had been nurtured, and then it has grown to a point where it has gone out of hand. So we cannot just attribute insecurity in the southeastern region of Nigeria to just one person, the likes of Nnamdi Kanu or Simon Ekpa, who just sits at his comfort zone and makes a tweet. Hey, today, sit at home and don't go anywhere. And it happens with a state that has a government, both the state and the federal government, to oversee the functions of that particular state. All right, so let's quickly get to our guest who is here. It's just Idioma. Well, he's a bank full of knowledge, I would say. Yes, and of course, he is a counselor. Yeah, I like that part of him where he counsels. So I think in this situation, he's the best person to counsel not the southeastern part of Nigeria. So we're talking to Idioma Ebon. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's so good to be here.
Okay, so he is a teacher and a counselor in Nigeria. Let's start from there before we come to the northeastern part of Nigeria, the southeastern part of Nigeria, sorry. Now, insecurity is something that has bedeviled the nation for a long time. I think it's one of the primary issues we have in Nigeria. The first thing that comes in as the first thing in your mind.
Yes, you're right. I think we still have the structures, the architecture very wrong as far as security is concerned.
How?
Now, number one, we still rely on neutralize any kind of uprising. Now, these were security strategies that were very active in the 19th century and in the 20th century. We have to innovate on our security systems. Number one, we have an ill-trained police system. We have a military completely enveloped in science and technology, and the rapid nature of our growth and existence, we still believe in putting police in vans and standing them in straight point,
Okay.
So if you get to Kodakbarabia, for instance, Lebanon, I do not think they have, for instance, the map, the security footage, the whereabouts, the entire issue of security.
So let me get, it's like things have changed. Let me put it in a layman's understanding. Things have changed. We're no longer doing things the analog way, but because trust me, even the people that are these people that are actually involved, directly involved kidnappers. The government is coming through this way. So we are used to the government coming through this way. So let's look for another way. And the government have not since realized that things have changed. So they should change their strategy as well.
Now, let me put this in perspective.
Just in the middle of the night, in broad daylight.
Some in broad daylight, fine.
You know,
Now,
sometime last week, something happened. I think somewhere in Kano where the Emir's palace was invaded, and then the Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Murtala Muhammad Airport, where some millionaire worth of lighting components were stolen from the airport, an international airport.
Outside the country, and I asked about issue of armed robbery, and he said by the time you hit someone's house, alarm goes off both in that house and in the police department.
Yeah, I know. I know it happens like that.
So if the society has so moved to that level, and you still rely on putting police at the junction,
but is it money that is our problem?
It's not money, because I don't see how small gadgets like that could be a problem to the Nigerian economy. It's simply innovation, training and retraining of personnel. The Nigerian security system, it's so outdated that it cannot take care of 21st century problems. Just like in counseling, which that were propounded in the 18th century, cannot take care of 2023 mal behaviors. No, it can't. So it has to be innovated. So when we have an institution that has deliberately refused to grow, they still believe in searching people's pockets and iPhones on the street, most of the very things that we condemned in NSAS. We still have a security network that the incident has to happen before they investigate. They're not working on intelligence. Because if you have a security system that's working on intelligence, they should be there before it happens. They would nip the crime on the board. And would grow, IPOB would grow, and all that issues. So I think the major problem, like we had mentioned in your narrative, may not be a one-person inspired problem like we might be forced to look at. It is because the primary sectors of the economy, that is of the society, that is supposed to look into that area has failed woefully. That's why we have that problem.
Okay, let's even get to the southeastern part of Nigeria. Before now, things used to go well, and then of course we had known that the fights, agitation for Biafra to be carved out from Nigeria has always, of course, his fans or his people obeyed. So every Monday there is a sit-at-home order, and then for once it looked like it was lifted up, and then the police had him in custody, and then it looked like everything was going to be okay. And then the next thing, Simon Ekpa came up, and then despite warnings, I know that the concern the southeastern part of Nigeria and issuing warning to Nnamdi Kanu. I'm looking at a government that one person is terrorizing a whole region. With just, the person is not present there. He's sitting somewhere outside the country and just something to happen. Can't the government just sit down and issue a tweet and say, sit at home, stop? And it stops. So it gets me worried.
Okay, the Biafran narrative is a long narrative.
Very long.
That some people got it very wrong, some people get it very right. And it's one of the perennial Nigerians problem. Just like we had Niger Delta issue, and just like we have Boko Haram issue. The problem is not that this person that you've mentioned will touch that space, that irresponsibility that the government has placed, that has left behind. Okay, when there is a vacuum, something must come in to fill the vacuum. We can't have vacuum. There's nothing like vacuum actually. Before Nnamdi Kanu, I think we had it was Rike.
Yes.
And before Nnamdi Kanu, fine. And then the Biafran issue is a very sensitive issue. The recent killing that was video that went viral, it's not so the society is not buying that as a means of communication at all. Now the sit-at-home order, least effect we have in the government. I don't know, like I used to tell my friends, sit at home, how does it affect Buhari? Then when Buhari was in power, it's crippling the Igbo economy.
The nation's economy at large.
Definitely, but the primary hits are the Igbos, because it's not happening in Uyo. I know there are so many people that would have in Uyo that would go to a bar to buy something, but they cannot.
Or even
but primary, there's so many injuries and frayed nerves that we have on the story. Of course, the Igbos, the Biafrans have one very strong language, that they are marginalized as far as the Nigerian economy is concerned, and they want to create a space for their voices to be heard. That sounds intelligent and genuine enough, actually. But when you look at the whole thing, And people have come out to say, we are not Biafrans, you are not Igbo, we cannot be part of it. Example, Akwa Ibom State. Example, Cross River State. Example from people in Port Harcourt. So this is what these people are saying, we are not Biafrans. If you want to draw Biafran map, draw the 5 eastern states and proceed. And they are arguing ferociously that these are Biafran lands with very strong, we can't forge we can't forge a discussion built on lies, built on perceived injuries.
Okay.
That's one problem we have with that. And then the federal government has come in to designate IPOC as a terrorist organization.
I think that's the part I wanted to comment.
Fine.
Yeah.
Now that the government has designated them as a terrorist organization, this present killing in the East simply gives evidence to the government that they are a terrorist organization. It butchers the government point that it's a terrorist organization. How do you move? And then you are the same people applying to the United Nations to give you space for a referendum and recognize you as an independent state. That would be the same thing. So I think a proper discussion can be carried out without such a terrible killings that we saw that day. You opened the gun on broad daylight on a motorcyclist and he stood around you killing people on the street, and you think with that, of course, if they come in and say, okay, we are doing this, we want Nnamdi Kanu to be released, because look at your people are doing this, and even if you are denying. So I think the actions do not portray what it should be. That's the problem we have, the entire Biafran narrative. I feel I am one person. I wrote my whole graduate thesis on post-colonialism. I understand what it means to be colonized. I understand what it means to be. But just like we had feminist discourse, just like we had other Israeli discourse, you shouldn't be carried on with violence to this nature, most especially to the very people it wants to serve. That's the problem. That's the primary handicap that the Biafran story has.
Okay, now let's talk about the nation at large. Let's stick to they have been, okay, they have not been included in some part of government policies and decisions, right? And so the government wants to help or wants to come in, because it looks like the government, there's negligence. If the people, my issue is, if the people in power who are meant to protect lives and properties cannot protect the lives and properties of those people in those part of the region, right? So what now happens? I know that the governors, the northeastern governors have rose. It looks like this has finally come to them. Maybe they have had it up to here and they have decided to go visit the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a decision to be made or to see what they can do about it, would say.
Step number one, they are not weaving a compelling narrative. Their conversation is polluted by violence and is not carried by the right people. We have House of Assembly members in the 5 states of the Eastern region. When has these House of Assembly members need a referendum? Just to use formal languages. How many people were killed in Euro exits? I don't know. How many people come out to say, to mention it in the floor of the House, so that we could maybe publish a white paper and call the 5 governors of the Eastern state to sit down. This is what we are looking for, and try to make senators from that. Don't they have senators to mention it in the floor of the National Assembly or the House of Representatives? Let's stay up a national conversation about this issue.
I think this is the point where I'm coming from.
In Nigeria, unfortunately, I am not going to sit down here and blame Biafra completely. Our government is always very insensitive.
In what ways?
In not listening, in not reacting when things are said. Immediately, in abandoning the voice of the people, the cries of the people. We have a whole lot of government insensitivity ever since we came up. That understood. But then, about a soldier that was killed with a fiancé, about to be wedded picture, something like that.
Okay.
And then, what nerves would you have to use and say, let's present a paper for the government to listen to us? So it leaves the government free. That's the problem. So I think the basic thing we can do is and then how united are they? Because if they are united in this cause, there is no how they can raise a conversation about it and then start talking about it. That's the problem we are having.
Okay, if you want to talk about the sit-at-home order, okay, talk to killings, talk about kidnapping, talk about a lot to mention. If you want to go there,
the very
a whole
first
lot to
step
mention.
is stress the origin of this problem. there is no problem with that on origin.
Now, the past administrations that have been here trying to trace the origin. I mean, we had insecurity in the days way back. I think it got worse.
Let's get back to just
okay,
Plateau.
yes.
All right. What happened? What is in just Plateau? Crisis between the herdsmen and farmers. The cows into this pot that we are feeding our families from this.
You see, that comes to a point where people feel that some of this violence are sponsored by some state actor.
Plans. It's just like someone is calling your attention. Rachel, you are not saying anything. At a point, you will shout. It's natural. So people are doing genuine complaint. Do not come and kill our crops. Silence about it. The violence erupts. So that is only when you can trace the origin of that problem that you can now see how to solve the problem. What is causing the problem? What are the major actors? How can we address this issue? That's how the problem is solved in that case. So if we have sparks of violence heard, should be heard. Like we had in the NSAS, even though the NSAS dialogue has not been done properly, but these were very genuine concerns by the youth. The police are harassing us on the street. When did it become a crime to own an iPhone? When did it become a crime to have a laptop or to drive in a Mercedes-Benz? Even if you are suspecting that this person is Yahoo in quote or doing some kind of internet fraud, can he be simply arrested or invited for arrest quietly? Government refused to listen until the guys took over the toll gate and still causing problem.
And it still ended up. You know, there's one thing about
sensitivity is also a feel that feels some of the insecurity.
Now let me talk about the issue of having people to address the issues because the government are silent, right? Way back, I remember some time in I think 2020 or so, or 20, I can't remember the year, when they had to recount, Aba people had to recount the losses they have had so far from the sit-at-home order, right? And then let me even go away from the sit-at-home order and talk about insecurity naturally. I mean, one thing that gets me worried is, so if in Nigeria, it's securities, okay, talk about during the electioneering period, the campaigning, where you saw some of the contestants, the convoys being attacked, so what happens to the common man? So it's coming to the part where the state actors are quiet. I think the most important, the number one services that the government offers to the public, like the NSAS, like what we're seeing, the sit-at-home order, and then finally the people decide to say, oh, we are no longer sitting at home on Mondays. They decide to revolt. What happens? Loss of lives of the innocent.
Well, I remember when Nnamdi Kanu was in news to support the Biafran cause. A woman stood up, always a woman. I love it when it comes from that perspective. A woman stood up and said, how old are you? And Nnamdi Kanu found it difficult to understand the relevance of his age. And the woman said he's asking this because he wants to know if he had lived through the Nigerian Biafran civil war. If he knows what it means to ever talk about in the 21st century civil war. Because we are always looking at war as maybe opening
or the final resolution
and saying fine. No, we have other things like you've just mentioned, loss of lives, properties, and then surviving even the peace that comes from the war, destruction of all those things. When will you have time to rebuild them? So in the country, we see the surface problem. We don't see problem that comes 30 years later, like the removal of fuel subsidy. What are we seeing as a problem? They are going to buy fairly high cost of fuel. That we are going to manage motorists. Everybody's talking of motorists. Nobody knows the fact that fuel determines the cost of Gary in the market.
That's the cost, general cost of living.
Yes, the entire Nigerian exists. Or analysis are always very shallow. So when you look at the violence thing, like the the killing of aides and attacks on convoys, fine, that some could be politically motivated, but it's one way of trying to see to get the shortfall of that nasty decision. I believe that if we open a space for better conversation, I'm going to see
like a dialogue,
not like a dialogue. Come and talk. Ensure security of life and properties, ensure education, of course, the primary function of policies, educational well-being and health. You can be my witness that health and education is another story for another very day.
Of course, we can talk about that like insecurity for a whole year.
So if they drop your guns, let us hear, what are you talking about? If they come around and say we want independent, and then they bring up that map again that includes Akwa Ibom State across River State, we in Akwa Ibom will say, excuse me, we aren't a member of Biafra. So we draw these states that came from different parts of the country. This is where our umbilical cord were buried. So we are fanatical about where we come from, because some of them, they may be Asian Americans, some of them may be British American. I am not a US Nigerian. I am for this is where affects our ethnic coloration. It hurts us to our bones because we feel we are trying to elbow an entire people's emergence as Senate president. Because you remember the first time we had a South president held that gavel was in the days of Joseph Wayas. So count from here to Joseph Wayas. So by the time it's not so many people who have no relationship with him.
Just happy smile because it's from your end.
Yes, from your political analysis to talk of the problems in Lagos when someone went to the Lagos and referred to Lagos as no man land, and then the owners of the land came out and they're like, we are the owner of this land. So we should be very careful when ethnic discourse or any discussion that genuine statements from them and government sets modalities to address them. That government show of concern would so much palliate them and will reduce this part of IPOC violence.
Okay, that's still like talking about dialogue. I remember Asari Doku was seated and then he was being heard what he feels, origin of oil theft and all of that. So, well, to some people, they felt that could be the beginning of going to solve the oil theft issue in Nigeria anyway. Well, we're not talking about that right now. Okay, so thank you so much, Idiara Ebong. He's a lecturer and of course a teacher and a counselor in University of Uyo.
Thank you very much.
It's always a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much to the listeners. Thank you for staying glued to your TV station, Spectrum TV. It's been a program, The Law, The People, and Governance here on Spectrum Television. Of course, this program is a socio-political program that talks about issues that concerns Nigerians and, of course, trends in politics as well. So we've been talking about the spate of insecurity in Nigeria and, importantly, the southeastern Nigeria and, of course, the sit-at-home order, the burning issue in the southeastern region of Nigeria. We hope that the government is going to stand up and of course face this problem and tackle it once and for all. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv.ng. Also follow us on Twitter at SpectrumT Online, all as one word. This is where we close the curtains for today. See you tomorrow. My name is Rachel David White.